several years. I did, and I watched the third season of Picard because, because they all said it was good, and it was really good. I almost look at it as this eighth season of TNG. So, anyway, not too long ago, I got Paramount, whatever it's called, Paramount streaming, and so I could watch old Trek. And I was sitting there bumbling around one day, and just something inside me said, "Why don't you give that Picard season 1 a try?" And I'd watched season 2 already. After I watched Picard season 3, and it was okay, kind of a little bit too on the head when it came to the immigration allegory and all that. I watched Star Trek to escape reality and not fucking be brought back to it. But anyway, so however it went down, I ended up watching Star Trek Picard season 1, and it wasn't that bad. It's even hard to hear myself say it. It wasn't that bad. Yes, obviously it wasn't the same. It's not your grandpa's Star Trek. You got me there, but it got me thinking. Okay, yes, Star Trek. Yes, Picard was beat down in the show. He was a bitter, old, demasculated man. But that was also the point. I think I got the idea or the impression from all these, content creators that they just were treating Patrick Stewart like that, period. And, but when I watched the movie, when I watched the show, when I watched Picard, I realized that, well, he is in the show, though. That's the idea. In the show, he is a busted down husk of a man who, had this career and is pissed off because he, tried to threaten retirement or resignation, and Starfleet told him to kick bricks, and so he was kind of a defeated guy, and he was older. He was fucking 30 years older than he was in Nemesis when he was 70. So it's yes, he was demasculated. Yes, was the show woke or whatever? Yeah, it was a little bit, just in the way of when it was made, all the people in charge were females, and yeah. And was there concerted effort at one point in time to tear down masculine pop cultural figures? I believe so, yes. I believe so. Just because that's what was going on in the world at the time with all the stuff. So yeah, characters like Picard and Luke Skywalker and Han Solo and all these people were kind of demasculated, but I think that was kind of the point too. And we're in a new age now, so it doesn't really matter anymore. But anyway, back to topic. So I watched that Picard season 3 and season 1, and it wasn't that bad. It wasn't that bad. So then I started thinking, well, if it wasn't that bad, then what's the deal? And got me thinking, and I'm like, there's sides that everybody's on, and everybody's picked a side. And there's no more being in the middle, which kind of sucks because I've always been kind of in the middle on a lot of things. Always been kind of a libertarian, I guess you could say. And in this day and age, you can't do that anymore in anything. Politics aside, but just anything. Because everything, for some reason, stretches into the political realm now. Like, oh, you like that kind of movie? You must be insert here. So, long story short, I watched that season and it wasn't that bad. Wasn't that great. I didn't really consider it Star Trek. I mean, it was. But in my mind, I was like, Picard has just escaped from the old folks' home in the future, and he's doing what he wants. And that's what's going on here. But, you know, the characters weren't that bad. Definitely has a hint of today's day and age, you know. People cussing and smoking vapes and shit, and that was kind of like, okay. But it wasn't bad. You know what I'd like to see Star Trek wise? I'd like to see you know, I was so bummed out when Enterprise got canceled back in the day. And it's like, I'd like to see something about the Earth-Romulan War. That would be cool. For this Trek dork. That would be really cool to see. So like I said with this channel, you know, a lot of this stuff is tedious stuff, you know, doing these little, you might be like, what is he even working on? Well, I'm just crisping up these lines, kind of, you know, flowing them out a little better. You know, just connecting them, making them thicker and thinner. Yeah. Anyway, when I was thinking about stuff I could do for content, you know, this kind of stuff, I was thinking, well, if you do like, if you take 3 sessions, you know, each one an hour long to make something really good, you know, to make something more akin to, you know, this, you know, something like this, it would take me about 10 hours, and then you time lapse it so it's all put together, and then you can just talk about whatever. If you did 3 of those, and then on the 4th one, you know, I don't know, figure out like some kind of giveaway where, you know, after the 3rd video where you've time-lapsed everything, you know, whoever donated or whoever, you know, some way, somehow find a subscriber, put them on a wheel and a randomizer, so whoever it lands on gets the image that we're working on. Something, you know, obviously you can tell by the way I'm describing it that still trying to figure it out, sorta, so. But we will. You know, it's like I told my kid, I'm like, you could do that kind of stuff and talking about Flamingo or whoever, and he'll say, oh, well, he's got like, you know, 18 million followers, Dad, and it's like, yeah, but he didn't start with 18 million followers, okay? You know, not to sound cliche, the journey of 1,000 miles starts with 1 step, you know? And that's kind of where I'm at right here, you know? You know, you gotta find an editing program. I've been doing a little research on that because, you know, I'm just looking for some light edits. So a year from now, you know, I might look back at this stuff and go, holy smokes, I can't believe you released that, Avery, you know, like, but, that's okay, because, I want there to be a sense of evolution, you know? I want there to, I want you to be able to see. Oh, he's gotten better, who knows, you know? Okay, so we're getting kind of detailed there. So how do I want to do this? I was thinking about having this guy come to like, I'm gonna put those a little closer together. Alright. Yep. Season 1 Picard wasn't that bad. Season 2 wasn't that bad. You know, and it makes me wonder, I mean, how much other stuff that's been made in the last several years wasn't really that bad, but just because I was so wrapped up in the propaganda, I guess, you know, I don't even know what you want to call it, you know, culture war or whatever, that I'm just like done with it. Just tired of it. Just wanna do my art. It'd be nice to make something of it. So, I'm drawing this guy's face here, being enveloped into the tree, his arm with his hand, you know. We'll draw like tree root looking, you know, type of roots, finger roots, whatever you want to call it. You know, Star Trek's a funny thing. You know, I've always loved Star Trek, like I said earlier, and you know, I think about it in this day and age, and I think, you know, a world of Star Trek would be close to heaven for me. I know that probably sounds dorky, but I don't really care. Yeah, like living in the Star Trek universe would be awesome. People have ever asked me, like, if you could have a superpower, what would it be? You know, and I've heard some people say, oh, well, I want to fly. I want to stop time. I want to do this. I want to do that. If I could have a power, I would want the power of being able to go into movie franchises and live in there and take stuff out of them, like on Last Action Hero. I'd want to be able to, you know, that's what I would want to do. That would be my power. Get tired of living in the Star Trek universe, go over to the Star Wars universe for a minute. You know, get tired of that, go over to some other place, you know. I think that would be cool. So there we go with the roots, finger roots here. Finger roots. Just gonna draw those going up the hand like such. I'm gonna make it look like his hand is more of a root than anything. Yeah, I think that would be cool, you know, be able to go into a movie universe and live in it, exist in that. Oh, that'd be awesome. That would be awesome. But, never gonna happen. Never gonna be happening, so. But you never know. You listen in simulation. Make my simulation into Star Trek. Yep, so we get this root structure down right here. And more detail, more detail. And really at the end of the day, this will still be considered kind of a quick drawing for me. You know, if I was gonna spend tons of hours on it, it would be a lot different when it was over with. It's okay though, this is more of a tutorial, not a tutorial, more of an introduction to me. The kind of person I am. A bit of a goofball. Father. Done a lot of stuff in my life. Cooked in restaurants for around 20 years, from everything from, you know, fast food when I was younger, to nice mom and pop places, and all the way up to 2- and 3-star restaurants. Became something called a practical chef, you know. You're not a true chef, but you've learned a lot enough that you'd be a low-end chef at a fancy restaurant. Yeah, I had a lot of fun doing that. Learned a lot of stuff. Just in general. Did that throughout my 20s. You know, started cooking when I was, you know, like 15 or something. And did it until, I don't know, 8-10 years ago, something like that. So around 20 years. While I was going through college, I did that. When I was also bartending. Bartended for a long time. Got tired of working in kitchens and making no money. To go upstairs at the end of the night to front a beer on my account because I didn't have any money because I was a cook, to watch the waiters and waitresses and bartenders falling over money, getting tired of counting money. Oh, only made $350 tonight. And I remember hearing that for the first time. I was making like $7 an hour. I don't know what year this was in. 2002. I was working at a restaurant. I was only about 20 years old, so I wasn't able to drink yet. But I remember going upstairs and just hanging out, you know, after work, and hearing somebody, one of the waitresses, say, "It was kind of slow tonight. I only made about $280." I remember thinking in my head, like, $280 tonight? And when they say tonight, it's not like they were there for 16 hours. You know, she got there 4 hours after I did and was already done by the time I got upstairs. And I was like, hell no. So I started bartending. Luckily, somebody in my family was already bartending that kind of a hole in the wall place. But that's good because that's what I needed. I didn't want to bartend at some fancy place. I wanted to bartend where people were more real. And that's what I did. So I bartended at a real hole in the wall. But it was fun. I learned a lot. Learned a lot about people. It was, a working class type place. The restaurant I worked at the time, the one I worked at for the longest, was kind of a highfalutin. We're a college town. We have an engineering school in town here, and we get a lot of professors in, and just that those kind of people. And they weren't bad people or anything, but they were just, they were kind of snooty, rich people, I guess. Not rich, but you know what I'm saying. They just weren't the kind of people that I like to gravitate into. But yeah, bartended for many years. And, made some money. Nothing crazy, but enough to keep me in the game for a long time. And it was interesting. But that gets old too, And at this point, I just want to give this a shot. Tired of bartending. I've heard it all, I've done it all, I've seen it all. Tired of cooking. Done the construction stuff, done the, worked at marinas, and I've worked at, newspaper plants, putting the newspaper together, and, worked out in North Dakota for years. And it'd just be nice to do something with this talent that the universe or God or whoever gave to me. It'd just be nice to put it to some kind of use. And if I could make money at it, that'd just be even better. That'd just be a dream come true. And realistically, I